Hey YouTube, this is Eddie's Tech Talk. Trying something a little different now, just coming at you from the couch with my quick thoughts, some tech thoughts I've been having the last couple days. And really, for those that know me, this is probably a shocker, but for me, I've been an Android user since 2011, so it's 2020 now, so 9 years. I've had a lot of Android phones. I've reviewed a lot of Android phones. I've owned a lot of Android phones. But now, with the introduction of iOS 14, and some lingering problems with Android, I'm kind of at least thinking that maybe iOS has the upper hand. I've always used Android. That's always been my preferred platform of choice because I didn't like being locked into Apple's walled garden. If I wanted a different keyboard, I could have a different keyboard. If I wanted a different browser, I could have a different browser. If I wanted a different SMS app, I could have a different SMS app, right? So on and so forth. I also liked the way that Android's hardware was. I liked the versatility, and I thought that the version upgrades to Android for a really long time were really awesome. But with iOS 14, they bring in home screen widgets, which removes a huge complaint that I had about the iOS app screen. If you go back to iOS back in the day, and you go up to iOS 13 right now, it's pretty much the same layout. They haven't changed anything. I do like the new layout where you swipe all the way to the left and you have that news and widget screen, but now adding widgets to the home screen, it's making iOS look modern. Things have a modern design feel. Things are cohesive. On Android, you still aren't getting that. And look, I've been an Android user, like I said, my entire smartphone life, unless I've had to use an iPhone for work or something like that. And to me, Android is just not, the gripes that I have with Android are still sticking around. They're not addressing them. And the gripes that I have with Apple and iOS, they're starting to really address those. I hate the Apple Mail app. I had a work iPhone, and you can change that now. You can also change your default browser if you don't want to use Safari. Now I know on Apple, for you tech heads out there, it's still using the Safari WebKit, so it's similar, but I love this inclusion. I love these features. And so with Android, I have my Pixel 4 here, and I really do enjoy the Pixel 4 for the most part. The battery life, subpar, but the camera, the astrophotography mode I got to try out, really great. Anyway, great phone. I'm not saying that it's not a good phone, but I'm running the Android 11 developer preview on the device. And just looking at the phone, just looking through here, you probably wouldn't know. I mean, I'm just going through, and I don't even really know. I'm running the Android 11 developer preview, and to me, it's the same as Android 10. Now, I know it's bringing new features, right? I mean, look, I've looked at, their changelog. I've looked at what they're bringing, and they are bringing new features, but I used to get excited about every release of Android, every major version release. And with Android 11, with the features set that they have here, I feel like it's Android 10.1, not really Android 11. Gone really are the days where I get really excited about a new OS from Android. And iOS 14 has actually made me pretty excited about Apple. Look, I don't know if I could ever use it as a primary device. I'm not sure if I could go that way with it. But my major gripes with Android, they still stick around. We don't have a unified messaging solution. I know RCS is rolling out. I have some friends who use RCS. I use RCS. It's okay, and it only works most of the time. iMessage has just far and away become a ubiquitous messaging solution. It's fantastic. It's a feature that I wished Android would have had for years. I mean, years. The cameras, I think, are really great on Android still, and most camera software is pretty good. And I think Android is still mostly winning at the budget end, but now that Apple has the iPhone SE, look, I review technology on this channel, and I started it from the beginning to help people make informed buying decisions. There's still great Android phones out there. Like I said, I like the Pixel. There's good deals on it. The camera is still awesome, and I love the orange color. It feels very iPhone-y in a good way in some types of ways. Some things just work. I love the way Android does notifications over the way iPhone does notifications, but Apple's really innovating, and they're really coming up front with really great stuff. And Android, for better or worse, I mean, I feel like they've really stagnated. I think that we needed a unified messaging platform that works and is fluid to the end user, even if you don't use tech. I think on Android we have needed something more cohesive in terms of design language across Android. I know you have pure Google Android, and then you buy a Samsung phone, it's way different. So that leads to widgets looking different and everything. We need a more unified strategy. And to me also, I'm able to run the Android 11 developer preview because I have a Pixel phone. And what's always bothered me for years, there's better looking phones out than the Pixel 4. But I wanted to be first in line for software updates. We're past the point where that should be a selling point on phones these days. If you have an iPhone, it's astronomical what they're doing. The original iPhone SE, which of course wasn't running top-end specs at the time, is getting iOS 14. Whereas you'll have Android phones that came out a year ago, 2 years ago. If it's not a Pixel phone, it's not going to get major version updates. Apple is still supporting old devices. Would I use iOS on an iPhone SE, the original one? No, I wouldn't. I would have upgraded, a little bit ago. I don't know that experience is fantastic, but you're still getting security updates. You're still getting these features, these updates to make your device more hardened from a security perspective, which matters to me because I work in cybersecurity. And I also bought the Google Pixel in part because of Google's Titan M chip, which helps. It's kind of like Apple's secure enclave, and that's great on the Pixel. But when you break out of those, and you're an average consumer, you need to think about security, you need to think about software updates, you need to think about these sorts of things, cameras and stuff. The Pixel stacks up because it has the Titan M, it has a great camera, it receives software updates, it's the most iPhone-esque Android phone that you can buy. But it's probably still not the best Android phone in terms of hardware, maybe experience, battery life. Certainly it is not. It's not the best Android phone for most people, I would say. It doesn't have 5G. I know Android's first to 5G and Apple doesn't have it yet, but we're getting to a point where I think Apple is really starting to pull ahead in this race because they make security just baked in. You just get security if you have it. Whereas if you buy, even if you buy the iPhone SE, you're getting security features. Whereas if you buy a $400 Android phone, you're not getting those. And Apple is storing more things on their device and doubling down on their commitments to privacy. Google is kind of really lagging behind in that perspective. So look, I'm still an Android user, I'm still rocking and rolling with Android, but the argument to go to iOS as an Android person, like I said, I've always had Android phones, to me is reaching a point where it's nearly as strong as it's ever been. The specs and the processing power of Apple's chips are blowing away the competition right now. And like I said, privacy, security, software support. The phones really just seem to have longer longevity. Of course, better resale value also. So I'm still rocking and rolling with Android for now, guys. I love the way Android does notifications. I think it's way better than iOS. And I still really like many features of Android that iOS doesn't have or doesn't do as good of a job with. But with iOS 14, they're really closing the gap. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section down below. Hopefully there's not a lot of hate on this thing. Like I said, still going Android, but the argument for iPhone has, to me, never looked as strong as it does now. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below, and I'll see you in the next one.